Hi, my name is Mike DiGirolamo, and I'm a producer and partner with Simpatico Studios, where we are moving the conversation forward on some of our world's biggest challenges, featuring the work of creatives and professionals just like you. I'm hosting conversations with media artists, journalists, filmmakers, activists, scientists, and others who are using their platform to affect positive environmental and social change. And if you work in the media, or you're using your platform to make progress on these issues, or you'd like to highlight an area of coverage that I haven't talked about, I'd love to speak with you. Please feel free to contact me. With that said, thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Impact Media. Today, my guest is Stephen Donofrio. He is the founding principal and curator of GreenPoint Innovations. He's a seasoned climate change expert and carbon markets expert. And over the past 15 years, he's worked with leading organizations such as the Chicago Climate Exchange and CDP North America. He's also been directing initiatives at the DC-based nonprofit Forest Trends. So today he's going to share how GreenPoint Innovations, which is a philanthropic arm of GreenPoint EARTH, works to advance public awareness around climate change solutions through harnessing the power of public art and purpose. And he's going to discuss a recent art activation competition in New York City called Screen to Streets, which invited a global community of artists to virtually convene and share their art to inspire climate action. And I'm really grateful that he came here today. Stephen, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing very good. So how are things going right now in New York City? I know that we're coming out of the tail end of this pandemic, but how are things looking for you over there?
Well, I mean, the day-to-day is, I think, similar to what we're all facing across the planet. But, you know, the climate wave is here, and it's a really exciting time, both to be looking locally and seeing how, you know, New York State pension funds and other kind of local initiatives are taking place to really tackle climate change, in addition to a new national strategy and also just to see how it all interfaces with the world stage. So it's a pretty exciting time, I think, outside of the pandemic.
So for those watching who don't know what GreenPoint Innovations is, can you just give a basic rundown of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, well, thanks. And you know, as you mentioned, I've been working in and around climate change for about 15 years now, and I've sort of seen the peaks and valleys of this topic become mainstream and fall off and go through different administrations, especially here in the United States. And where it sort of led me to, you know, just about 6-7 years ago, was wanting to find ways to harness technology and the arts and different sort of mediums to collect different types of data while at the same time being able to tell stories. And you know, as someone in my role, who I come from working in the kind of the deep trenches of climate change and working on the issues of trying to figure out pragmatic and you know, very, I guess, in the weeds type of opportunities and solutions to tackling the issue, that what I was seeing 6 or 7 years ago was that people in my local community just weren't as connected to the topic and just didn't see their connection, you know, to the topic from a public health perspective and from a community development perspective. And so the idea was to try to establish a presence that would offer pathways to learning about these challenging topics in a very kind of engaging way, and in so doing, partnering with different types of organizations and artists and you know, creatives along the way to get that job done.
And so you've chosen, at least recently, you've chosen street art in particular to communicate the message of the climate crisis. Why street art?
Well, this began in 2016. You know, we had been doing some projects that were maybe more technical, you know, developing publications and reports around methane emissions from oil and gas companies, and you know, the dire situation that, you know, the world was facing with all the reality of information and data coming forward. You know, being able to express this in a public very community-based, format that also has the ability to reach global audiences through social media and other types of communications channels. And it just really presents this really special and unique opportunity for people dealing with not just climate change, but all types of issues, whether it's public health. We saw during the pandemic tons and tons of murals being put up, about frontline workers. And we had the opportunity to project manage one of those projects in New York City back in May. And I just really think that, we can be, stronger together using our technical sides as well as our creative sides, and really beautiful things can emerge from that. And ultimately the goal is to inspire people to take action. It's not just about the doom and gloom, but it is about showing these really fascinating new developments of technology or innovations that they can grab a hold of as individuals and as local businesses to achieve the problem of tackling climate change.
Great. And so let's talk about some examples specifically in New York City. What kind of impact have you seen your art installations or these art installations have on the city of New York?
Yeah, so aside from curating the artists and spending a lot of time, thinking through who are the right artists locally as well as internationally that we can work with, it's also been about finding the right partners and also the right homes for the murals. We don't do hundreds of murals in a year. It's only a handful, and every time that we've done a mural, it's been in a very public space with an opportunity for it to be long lasting. So we've worked twice at public parks, New York City parks, also twice on school buildings, one at a community area where there's an education programming. And so that allows us to, I guess, be present in a different way. We have a very engaged local community presence in that sense because of that. And what we've been finding and talking to the principal of a school we painted a couple of murals at in 2018 was that it really presents this opportunity to talk about challenging issues like I mentioned before, but about deforestation, the role that the impact that has on indigenous people, and as well as biodiversity. So it offers this new channel for education, and that's part of what we're hearing. And also for some of these schools, that school, for example, was a Title I school that a lot of these kids are challenged from below the poverty line, and I think to help inspire them with something beautiful on the outside of their schools, helps to alleviate whatever issues they might be facing on the way to school, and also helps build community for them with their local neighbors. So those are just some examples, but I most recently we also partnered with another school, the Hunters Point Community Middle School, and I just sat in on a webinar with a bunch of these students, over 100 students, talking about their projects around the science course, and the math department got together, and I was helping by providing some technical information around calculating carbon emissions throughout that process. But on this webinar, you get to see that these are really intelligent, forward-thinking young people that I guess I just find hope that by showing them something that is imaginative and beautiful and in a creative lens on the side of their building as they go to school, that then maybe it helps to inspire them to work in that field as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm curious to know, in these conversations that are being inspired now in communities, have you heard anything about any kind of local or municipal local government employee maybe seeing these and being inspired to take action? Or have you seen any actual policy changes come out of these conversations?
Well, I think it'd be challenging for us to take that type of credit, but at a local level, you can see some some impact. We're part of the North Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce, which has an environmental initiatives committee. And this is made up of, Fortune 500 companies to very small local nonprofits. It helps to bring the dialogue together, even in that local setting. So maybe it helps to inspire, some local action. One of our murals in North Brooklyn and GreenPoint is in a park, which Fail painted back in 2016. And we've seen trash cleanup programs, start up in that park. People maybe seem to relate to the mural and its message and want to take care of the park at the same time. So I don't know if it's necessarily causality, but I think, the whole world is now shifting into a more conscious space around climate and the environment. So you're seeing at that, even another tier up in the local level from council people, assembly people. They really take care of these issues, and they were present during the launch of this mural we just completed in September, talking about how we really need to take action on climate change. We really need to push the agenda forward for the youth and for the future populations. So it helps to kind of convene and help people that are coming from different places, channel conversation in one direction, and hopefully it does inspire new policies and environmental initiatives.
So this is a good segue into talking about the mural, which is painted by Yana Cruz. And this thing is beautiful. It's very large. It's a gorgeous mural. Can you describe to me what was the selection process in terms of selecting this mural to be featured, and what kind of response has it gotten?
Yeah, well, from a creative perspective, I try to take a hands-off approach on telling the artist what to paint, what style they should have. But this is really part of a bigger project. So GreenPoint EARTH is the pillar of GreenPoint Innovations, where we do these public art projects. And it started, actually, this mural was meant to be done way back in April, but due to COVID, we had to really significantly delay our process. And we were able to bring together some partners. So our initial partner was Newtown Creek Alliance, where we were able to get some initial grant funding from the New York State Pollution Prevention Institute. Then bringing in some of my international partners from the UN SDG Action Campaign, and also the Climate Week NYC team from the Climate Group. So this was the kind of the idea, if we could bring together these global organizations, local, and then as we had to shift into more of a virtual, out of in-person platform, we called it Screens to Streets, because we wanted to inspire artistic communications through sustainable and climate art all around the world, not just in New York City. So we had artists, over 100 artist submissions to an online award program, which we called Screens to Streets. Those were the Screens Awards because they were virtual. 10 artists were selected for that award and given a small financial reward, as well as visibility, as much as we could do. And it was really powerful. Over many different countries were represented by these artists that submitted those virtual applications. And then we also, as part of the Streets Award, was to do this mural in September. And that we had a judging committee that was built on people from the UN space, but also local organizations. And this was at a school, so we had a school representative, as well as the parks person representative, because it was also abutting a park. So we really wanted to make sure we were able to capture different perspectives in the judging process. But some of the core criteria were that the artist that would be selected would have committed their career to trying to use art as a vehicle to talking about environmental issues, but also has worked different ways in their own process to improve the way in which we impact the planet and various things. So it's all about finding more efficiencies. And long story short, the final criteria was that we really wanted somebody that was local. In this time where we really shouldn't be, moving around for different jobs, and we didn't want to influence that type of travel behavior. That what we did instead was we really looked at local artists, and we had, I think, over 35 submissions or so. From local area, and Federico Massa, who goes by the name of Aina Cruz on Instagram and Twitter, he was selected and was just an incredible person to work with. So patient with the process, which was actually a very fast process, because when he was selected, he then had just about a week and a half to develop the design and get that approved by the school system and the city. But just is such an incredible artist and a really amazing person to work with.
Yeah, and that's a really quick turnaround for a design and of that magnitude. I'm curious to know what's been the kind of the environmental or scientific response in the scientific community to this artwork, if there has been one. Can you share anything on that?
Yeah, well, the features in this piece of art in particular is talking about the past, present, and future of the Newtown Creek, which is a very small 3.5-mile estuary that connects to the East River, but then connects to the Atlantic Ocean and our global ocean. So in really many ways, this is a connected space for everybody because of the industry that was present there over the years. At one point in time, whale blubber oil was processed there, but it's been a very active industrial zone. And we're by no means saying that industrial activity has to leave, but we have to be more conscious of the impacts that it has on locations like this, because it is a Superfund site. It was designated a Superfund site several years ago. And so by including features of the industrial past, as well as the beauty of nature, I guess our hope is that it will inspire more funding to go into cleanup of the area, restoration work, tree planting programs, habitat for biodiversity. The Newtown Creek Alliance team, which is that does a lot of this local work, are working on these issues, and so it helps to kind of I think in a lot of ways, just like you would see a billboard advertising something, it helps to advertise what's possible here with additional support and additional initiatives to clean up the issue and also to safeguard this ecosystem.
I want to talk a bit about something that you and I had discussed a little bit earlier, and that's how GreenPoint Innovations is making a connection or a pathway to connecting smaller local organizations that are working on the ground to the larger international, well-funded or well-organized bodies. Can you talk about how you guys are making that happen in a unique way that normally doesn't happen?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time in my day working on different issues and different types of programs. My other life is still very active, working in the international space, so I'm able to connect with people that work at these larger nonprofits, like who we've worked with in our, in the past projects have been National Wildlife Federation International, which does a lot of work in places like in Brazil, the Cerrado, where we actually have migratory birds that go from North America down to the Cerrado. So there is this, connection back, to the Northeast in a way. And you can always build some sort of connections here. So very international groups like that, Arbor Day Foundation, but also the UN climate change team, the UNICEF, who we worked with back in 2018. So these very international groups, I think maybe historically would have had more focus on an international scale, and maybe wouldn't come into contact with some of these smaller, community-based groups who we end up, partnering with as well. Another example was back in Madrid. last year in 2019 for the UN Climate Conference, we were able to team up with our wall host was actually a community center for intellectually challenged adults, and so being able to kind of have this really beautiful building and space that was a home for people that were learning, functional skills and to be part of, society, and was also connecting to these international organizations and the UN Climate Change Conference that was happening at the same time. What we heard from the director of that community center was that actually helped to inspire her to develop a educational program about the Sustainable Development Goals and climate change for I think there's 17 or there's maybe somewhere around 20 different community centers like that in Madrid. So that to us is a huge win, for inspiring other people to be agents of education and change by working with them.
And so, Stephen, I just want to, for the last couple minutes here, I just want to, kind of give people a sense of where you feel that GreenPoint Innovations is headed. What are some of your goals or aspirations for the future? You don't have to give specific details necessarily, but where do you see your GreenPoint going?
Yeah. Well, one thing we hadn't talked about, which is a part of where we're going, is that this we really also want to show these climate solutions, and so we've worked with solar companies, eco-friendly paint companies, hybrid electric boat companies, and a part of this vision is really to connect these different worlds together, so that you can really start to sift through the weeds of how we can get to that better future. So going forward, we want to build on these past experiences, these past partnerships, and maybe expand and do more globally. That will, maybe it's not necessarily us on the ground somewhere, but how we can help help inform and educate and I guess train people in a way on how to do these projects if we can, so that they can do it in their own local communities, and continue to kind of spread the messages that we've talked about here, because it's really, this is a globally impactful issue, and it has to be a globally coordinated effort in order to solve it.
Great. And as you know, it's a new year. We have a new presidential administration. And what do you hope happens in terms of the community art space? What do you see possible now, today, that maybe might have been a lot more difficult to achieve in years past with art installations specifically?
Yeah, well, I mean, New York City, I think, is a rare city where it's very open to public art. We had some challenges in other cities, starting conversations even about having public art on buildings. And even in Madrid, the process of getting a building in a public space would have taken months and months and months, and a lot of community meetings. But here in the United States, I think we're finally at a place where we have focus on an interest from the top level down, to push climate change, not just as an agenda, but as a pragmatic component of how it really interfaces with all of society. And so much of this is also linked back to the appreciation for arts and culture, that it's we have to be an inclusive community, appreciating people of all different shapes and sizes and backgrounds. So I think the future, especially this year, which is also the International Year of Creativity at the UN, for advancing Sustainable Development Goals, that this is a great moment in time where we can harness, hopefully new funding, new avenues for getting these projects underway throughout the whole country, and really trying to I think bridge some divides through public art. That cuts through demographics, cuts through beliefs, it cuts through political divides. It really shouldn't be a partisan issue, and so hopefully we can find opportunities to be a part of that.
And if anyone listening is interested in becoming a funding partner or wants to contact you about possibly working with you, how should they reach you?
GreenPoint.earth is the URL. I would say go there. There's a link, but contact us at info@greenpointinnovations.com, and be happy to follow up a conversation. And it doesn't need to be a funding conversation, but our work is depending upon organizations that support us in different ways and that can work with us and collaborate.
All right, Stephen, it's been a privilege having you on. We're going to go ahead and transition into just chatting. If you have a couple more minutes to maybe answer some live questions, so just sit tight and we'll be right back.
Sure.